Okay, everyone, now that we've talked about using the generate function in Photoshop in order to create web graphics or assets for a page you're designing, I want to talk about building out this design that we have right here using brackets, HTML, and CSS techniques we've been discussing for the last few weeks. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to analyze this site a little bit and kind of talk about how to approach picking out a structure for the site based on the mock-up that we have right here. So in order to do this effectively, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a blank layer on top here. And you don't need to do this if you want to. This is just for visual purposes while I describe how I'm going to build this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and I'm going to make on this layer, I'm kind of going to draw out a wireframe so you can get an idea of how this is going to work. So here's my actual section on top here. And I'm just going to fill that in like so. Maybe drop the opacity down a bit so you could see it. Okay, so that first box that I just drew is going to represent the header of this site. Okay, so that being said, we are going to make this header contain two items. And it's going to have a graphic, which represents this play logo. And it's going to have an unordered list, which is going to be used to generate this navigation structure right here, containing 5 items. These four words, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, and another item which is going to contain an image that's going to be a placeholder for this search box. Okay, so that's the first part of our design. Second part, we're going to create another container which is going to be called main, right? So I'm going to represent main by this second box right here. Okay, and main is going to be the main content area of our site. And essentially, it's going to have 2 elements to start with. It's going to have a paragraph, which contains this inspire, create, play words. This is going to be text inside of a paragraph tag, and we're going to style it appropriately to get the look and feel we want for it. And then down here we have this little sub-navigation which represents the different genres of music that this site supports. And essentially we pulled these icons out already using Generate in Photoshop in the first exercise. So what I want to do is I want to actually put this together using an unordered list and then style it so that it goes from a vertical layout to a horizontal layout. Okay, so that's the next segment. And then let me deselect this. And the third segment is going to be this black bar on the bottom, which this is going to be represented by a HTML tag called footer. And in the footer, we're going to have some text here, which is just going to contain this text that we need to make this look the same way as it looks here. And we'll style it appropriately by styling the fonts. Okay? So that being said, what I'd first like to do here is I'm going to launch brackets really quick. Okay, so here's brackets. I took the liberty of already pulling in my folder that was created out of Photoshop called, what was it called again? It was called Play Prototype Design Assets. So I just took that and dragged that kind of over to my work files section right here. Okay. Now, what I am going to do, I also took the liberty of creating a blank HTML file right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to proceed to first create a blank template to use. Then I'm going to put in those sections that we just described by analyzing the mockup in the HTML, okay, and get all the structure set up right for the site. Then the next second part of this will be to style everything appropriately. Okay, so here I go. So what I'm going to do is the first thing always is your doc type declaration. And that's going to be HTML when we're in an HTML5 environment, right? So that's number 1. And then I'm going to go here and put my HTML tag like so, open and closed. Okay, always the second part. Third part is to create your head section. Not header, but head. Okay, you want to be careful with that. Sometimes brackets is a helpful program when it tries to do things for you, but if you're not careful, it'll do things you don't intend. Okay, so I am also going to take advantage of the fact that I'm building this now, and I'm going to put my style tag in at this point, because my style tag essentially is going to be needed as we move forward and we're starting to do more robust designs that involve multiple pages, we'll probably start to use an external style sheet. So right here at this point, I would put a link tag, link into that external style sheet. But since this is only one page we're building and we're still getting to know how to sort of approach these sort of things, I kind of want to make sure that we keep it all on the same page to make it easier for ourselves. But in the long term, that is best practice. So I do encourage you to start thinking in that direction. Okay? So that being said, next, I'm going to put in my body section, right? And essentially, that's my basic HTML template right there, right? So I'm going to take the liberty of saving this, right? I already named this index.html, but I'm going to save it again. All right, so now, based on the analysis that we just did of our mockup, I'm going to start building this out. So remember, 3 sections: header, main, and footer. So in header, we're going to have a image right here. We're going to have a navigation, which is going to be represented with an unordered list containing these particular items. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to start building out this structure. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in header. Right, that's the start of my process for the first section. Then I'm going to put in an image tag, src equals quote, and I'll just select play logo here, like so. Then I'm going to put in my unordered list. So I have the UL, right? And we know that we also need for an unordered list a series of LI tags, right? And I'm just going to start putting the words in as well. So I'll put in, the first one was artist, okay? And then I'm just going to do a quick cut and paste operation. So I'll say edit copy, and I'm going to put in all 6 of them, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm just going to, I like to keep my code lined up nice and neat. I'm a left justified sort of a guy, whereas you may like to do an indent structure. That's entirely up to you. Okay. Essentially, now we just need to change these words. Now I don't remember the order of them, so I'm just going to pull this down a little bit and peek. So the next one was playlists. The next one was reviews. The next one was news. The next one was about. And then the next one was this little search bar here, this little search bubble, so to speak. Now, if memory serves, I don't think I pulled that out of Photoshop. So I'm using generate. So I want to go back to Photoshop here, and I want to check that. So if I look here in my section called site header, right, I see we have, there's the site links, and here's the site search, right? So this is a layer group, right? So if I turn it on and off, I can see that it represents that whole bubble, right? Now, probably in the long run for this site, I'd probably make that a form field so that you could type in it and actually make the search work. Okay, but we haven't gotten there yet, so just for now, I'm going to make this an image that we can put there, okay? So in order to do that and generate, what I have to do is I basically need to say, let's name this layer group. Okay, so I'll go here and rename this sitesearch.png, right? So if I have sitesearch.png and I hit enter, okay, that file is going to be generated automatically based on my actual layout, right? So you want to always make sure that generate is on. So it is, little check marks there, right? So now if I bring back brackets here real quick, okay, you'll notice that that file automatically got generated, and since I dragged the assets folder that was created by Photoshop using generate to my working files in brackets, that file will automatically appear. So now you'll see there's site search right there, automatically appearing. So now I can go to my last UL here and just put in an img src equals quote, and I'll just scroll down and choose site search, and then I'll put slash bracket, and I'll delete that word there, okay? So now I have my first structure done. Now, I'll be honest with you, it doesn't look like much at this point. So if I load this up and do a preview quickly here, here's what we get. Okay, and actually since the white graphic and we have a white background, you don't see the graphic, but it's there, okay? So we do have some work to do on this, okay? So it's not really going to look anything like the mock-up until we start the styling process. But just for the sake of checking the structure, I'm going to look at it periodically as we build it. So let me take this Chrome browser and just put it on the side for now. Okay, so now that we have the header section done, I'm going to build the main section, right? So the next part of this will be building out the main section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say main. And like I said, in the main section, there was two elements. I said the first one was that text that I was going to make as a paragraph, right? So what is it? It's inspire, create, and play, right? So I'm going to put inspire dot create dot play. Now, I often get a question from people regarding this exercise asking me why I don't make that an image rather than text. Well, there's two reasons for it. One, text is flexible and adaptable, okay, and faster to load, whereas an image is an image, okay? So later on, when we start to take this site and make it be responsive for tablets and cell phones, what we're going to do is we'll be able to change the styling on this text to make it work in whatever environment we're in. Whereas if we made it an image, we could do that too, but it would be a little bit more challenging to do. We'd have to have multiple images for different environments that are different sizes. And I think personally, text loads faster. I can really just manipulate the font to make it look just like that text in the mockup. So when you can do something faster by using text instead of a graphic, that's always a good idea. So that's kind of why I decided to use text for this rather than a graphic. Okay? So that being said, now that I have that paragraph in place, the next part of this is going to be to create the unordered list for that sub-navigation, the little dots that represent the different genres of music on the site. So in order to do that, I'm going to put in my UL. Right, I believe there's 5 of these, so I'll put LI in, and I'll put in the image for the first one, so I can copy and paste it. IMG SRC equals quote, and I believe the first one is electronic, right? And you could check that real quick just by putting your cursor in here and visually confirming that it's the right graphic, okay? And then I'll just put my closing tag on my image, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, edit, copy, and I'm going to paste it in 5 times. Well, 4 times. 2, 3, 4, and 5, because there's 5 of these images. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to change the name of the image, right? So the second one, I believe, is hip hop, right? I'm just going by memory, so if I get it wrong, we'll know pretty quickly. Okay, the third one, I believe, is R&B, and I think I got it wrong already, but we'll see. Fourth one is, I believe, indie, right? And the fifth one, I believe, is classical. Okay? So now there's my unordered list for this second navigation. Okay? Like so. Sorry, close that up really quick. So there it is. Okay? So let's see if I got it right here. I did. Okay, good. The order is correct. Okay? So now if I want to take a preview of this, here it is in Chrome. Okay, so we have almost all the elements in place here. Right? We have our header section. We have our main section with the pieces in here. I'm going to put in the last section now, okay, which is going to be the footer, right? So I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in my footer tag, and I'll close that, right? And then what I'm going to do here is I could do this one of 2 ways, okay? I like to keep this simple, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Photoshop, right? And I see here's the play is about the music. There's the actual text layer here. So what I'll do is I'll take my text tool, and I'm just going to copy and paste that. So I'll just copy that whole thing here, right? And I'll say, now you might get a message about the font. You could just cancel that, okay? Because I don't have this font on my computer, so Photoshop is kind of freaking out a bit. So I could either copy and paste this or let the font get substituted, right? I think I will. I don't feel like typing it, so I'm going to let this font get substituted. I'll say okay on that, and I'll just do a quick copy, right? Bring this back in the brackets. All I'm looking for, I just make sure not to save the Photoshop file. I'm just looking for the text, okay? So we'll say play is about the music, right? So I'm going to put a paragraph around this, like so. And then at the end of this, I will put in the closing. And then what I'm going to do also is I'm just going to put a BR here. And then I'm going to let that be the close of my footer. Now you may be wondering why I put this in a container versus not putting this in a container. Okay, because I think what I'm going to do, let's look back at the mock-up here. See if I can get back to my, yeah, good, okay. So what I'm going to do here is you'll notice that this text is different from the rest of it. So I think my intention is going to be to actually make this text here and this text match for the navigation. So I'll pick a font for the whole page, and then I will go in and I'll make this one and this one match. And then by putting this one in paragraph tag, I'll have the ability to style this one larger in a different color, whereas on the bottom I can style that one gray, and it can all be the same font face. Or I can change it, I can manipulate it. By putting a container around it, that gives me the ability to change it with styles. Whereas this will be a little more challenging to change with styles unless I apply it to the entire footer or the entire page. Okay? So the choices you make early on in the HTML are going to be important for how you actually write out the styles. And that's important to understand. Okay? So that being said, I think I'm done with my HTML structure here. Let's just give it one more look. Here it is right here. We have all the different pieces in place. Okay? And at this point, I think we're ready to be moving on to the next exercise. So thank you, and please proceed to video module 3. Thank you.